Ready to connect. Click Connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Audio test for YouTube. Audio test. Let's make sure that this works out the way it's supposed to. Audio test for YouTube. Audio test. Let's make sure that this works out the way it's supposed to. Another audio test here for our chat and our post game, which will go live immediately ending following the game. Another audio test here for our chat and our post game, which will go live immediately ending following the game.
first half just really let them down. At one point, they were 5 of 8 from 3.
How you doing, everybody? I'm Ken Bykoff, and welcome to the Peegs Postgame Live. Indiana goes to Nebraska and put up a fight for a lot of the game, but simply did not have enough defensively to knock off the Cornhuskers as Indiana falls 85-68 to move to 1-1 in Big Ten play in a game. Again, this is not going to quiet anybody about Indiana and how they've done against top opponents. Obviously beat Minnesota earlier this week in Bloomington, but going on the road, taking on Nebraska in the first true road game of the year, Indiana loses by 17, and that includes Nebraska kind of putting the Hoosiers away late, a 17-1 run over the final 6 minutes and 27 seconds of the game. Indiana... We're going to start that over, boys and girls. How you doing, everybody? I'm Ken Bykoff, and welcome to the Peegs Post-Game Live. Take 2, I guess you could call it, as we had a little problem there for a second. But Indiana goes to Nebraska and falls 85-68 in a game that isn't going to quiet anybody when it comes to the way the Hoosiers have played this year. A 17-point loss that saw Nebraska end up going on a 17-1 run over the last 6 minutes and 27 seconds, scored the final 7 points of the game. Indiana, one of its last 18 shooting and missed its last 12 shots of the game. Interesting stat for Indiana. They go 8 of 35 from three-point range, including 3 of 20 in the second half alone. And that obviously is a huge number of threes that Indiana shot in this one. And a little crazy because that is not what we have seen from these Hoosiers to this point in the season. But they decided this time they're going to do it. And Luke Goody, 3 of 10 from three-point range. Galloway, 3 of 9. That's 19 of the 30 coming from those two guys. And I don't know if it was just a matter of Mike Woodson saying, go ahead and do it. You know, take your shots, fellas, if you have them. Or if that's a situation where it's like, well, people want us to shoot threes, so let's go ahead and show them what we can do. Foul trouble was a problem for this Hoosier ball club, and Mackenzie Mbako plays 1 minute in the first half due to foul trouble along the way. And Nebraska shot 65.2% in the first half. And yeah, Nebraska has good shooters, but they also got a lot of easy baskets on the game Think about this. Nebraska shoots 57.7% in the second half, and their shooting percentage went down. Finished 61.2%. That's 30 of 49 from the floor, 8 of 14 from three-point range, 17 of 26 from the free throw line. Indiana, meanwhile, shoots just 35% overall, 27.8% in the second half, and Nebraska pulls away late to knock off Indiana and knock the Hoosiers to 1-1 on the Big Ten season to this point. 812-393-2600 is the number. We have our first caller on the line. If you could have a caller, if you could tell me your name, where you're from, and what you got.
It's Floyd from LaGrange, Indiana.
Hi, Lloyd. How you doing?
Great. So what do you think's the problem?
I'll tell you, I think what the problem is, obviously the offense can hum at times. To me, it's the defense. It's the defense that has been a problem. And even against Minnesota, Indiana, the numbers looked solid defensively, but it was a lot of Minnesota taking some bad shots, shooting themselves in the foot. This one, just too many easy baskets. To me, it is defense that is the issue.
We can't defend nobody.
Yeah, and that goes for inside or out. That is an issue. Nebraska outscores Indiana in the paint 36-24, and they got better looks from the perimeter, and they knocked them down. And they did a good job of spreading out Indiana defensively, which created lanes and really kind of neutralized Ballo inside.
Yeah, I just don't understand why kids can shoot threes in high school and then they come to Indiana and they can't be consistent.
And
is it that big a difference between high school and college, or?
Well, and a lot of these guys that are shooting, they are not high school kids. I mean, they are veterans. You talk about a guy like Galloway, he's played a lot of basketball here.
I know.
Yeah, it's something else. Where do you think the Hoosiers could go from here?
Oh, I don't. My hopes ain't very high for the Hoosiers. I'm a diehard Hoosier fan, but something's got to really change.
Yeah, it's frustrating to watch, to say the least.
I mean, I don't want to point no fingers, but there's better coaches out there. That's my book thinking.
Well, yeah, if you see Nebraska scores 44 points in the first half, 41 in the second half, shoots 60%.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, to me, that's defense. That's defense, and defense comes down to effort and energy, which I thought Indiana had at times, but they had too many no-shows from their guys.
I'm very disappointed at Ballo. I heard everything about him when they first got him, how good he is and everything else. He's slow. My book.
He almost had a double-double tonight, 8 points and 11 boards, one block. But still, I could see what you're saying. He was also minus 16 on the day. The only guy that was two guys that were worse than that were Miles Rice, who was minus 20, and then Trey Galloway, who was minus 24 on the day. So it is frustrating.
We missed a lot of easy bunnies second half.
Yeah.
I thought we did.
Lot of shots at the basket were an issue. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the call,
Yeah,
Lloyd.
well, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. 812.
And I ain't listening.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, Floyd. If you want to call back, feel free. It sounded like you had one more thing, and I dropped you a little bit quick. Sorry about that, buddy. Give me a call back, 812-393-2600. We'll get you on the air right away. On the chat, Brandon says, who's your daddy chance? We're out there, and they were. And you know, hey, look, it's a 17-point win. How can it not? Let's talk a little bit about the individual performances in this game. Miles Rice scores 20 points on 8 of 13 shooting, 1 of 4 from three-point range, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. He added 3 rebounds, an assist, 3 turnovers, 4 steals in 28 minutes, but he also did have 4 fouls on the day. And Rice did a nice job of scoring when he's playing downhill. And he makes a difference like that, just an explosive first step. And when he has a lane, he can score any way he wants, but he needs help. He needs help, and we've seen him be inconsistent as well. Malik Renew, 12 points on 3 of 6 shooting. He added 3 rebounds. He had 4 fouls as well, played just 20 minutes, was basically a non-factor. And when Renew is a non-factor, that's a real problem for the Hoosiers because they need him to be active on the floor and be a guy who just makes a difference. And in this one, he really didn't. Not that much at all. Trey Galloway, 10 points, but was 3 of 12 shooting, 3 of 9 from three-point range, had 3 assists, but that was with 2 turnovers. Again, plays 32 minutes. He's minus 24. Got beat defensively quite a bit. Still way too loose with the ball is Trey Galloway, and I know that is a serious source of frustration as far as I'm concerned. Omar Ballo, 8 points on 3 of 4 shooting. He had 11 rebounds. He had a block shot, but he was not nearly as active as we have seen him. And then Mackenzie Mbako. Got to talk about Mackenzie because 2 points on 1 of 4 shooting, 5 rebounds. He had 3 fouls, played just 13 minutes, just was not a factor. And it really comes down to this is not an IU team that has a star on it. You have guys that can make things happen, and it isn't a situation where, well, nobody can really focus on one guy because Indiana has so many guys. I thought they showed good balance in the first half. Second half was a lot rougher, and Mbako's the guy that you think could be that guy that could put up a ton of points. We've seen him do it before. The problem is he's just way too inconsistent, and you throw in the fact that he's a defensive liability, and that does not help along the way. And we are well beyond the point where the Hoosiers should be still using that excuse of we're new together, we're playing, not playing together. You just don't have a guy. You don't have a star who is just a straight badass that is going to tell everybody, get out of the way and let me do it. Nobody is the man on this team. Nobody. You have guys that can make an impact, but you are lacking leadership, I feel, offensively. You are lacking the veterans that can step up. The defense has been terrible, to be quite honest. Look, Nebraska could shoot the ball. They're good at, and they're a good offensive team, but 85 points, 61% shooting. They match you on the rebounds, 35-35. And you throw in the fact that Indiana had 15 rebounds on this game. 15 rebounds, offensive rebounds. And in terms of second chance points, they turned those 15 rebounds into 10 points. And that's with Nebraska turning the ball over 14 times. So there's you now have a 20-plus point loss to Louisville, a 20-plus point loss to Gonzaga, or it's right around that margin, 17-point loss to Nebraska on the road. So the second you get away from Assembly Hall and play a real opponent, one that didn't play the late game last night and is playing the first game the next morning, Indiana's getting the hell beat out of it every time it goes to the floor. And that's a concern. 812-393-2600 is the number. We got another caller. Give me your name, where you're from, and what you got.
I'm really pissed about the game.
Okay, that's fair. Why so?
I just feel like they played terribly.
They weren't good. They weren't good.
It's just not like, it's just not like normal. Like, it was just really unexpected. I was expecting a win, and then we just got an L.
Well, and this is, I believe, the 4th straight time Nebraska has beaten Indiana. And they've done it with different players. Last year's team was much, much different than what Indiana has this year. And these losses, to me, just keep coming down to a lack of defensive effort.
No, definitely. We lost, a lot of our good players.
And the new guys aren't stepping up. Miles Rice, again, 20 points. That's great. But that was about the only guy that showed up today. And there's just definitely something missing from this team.
I feel like also Trey Galloway hasn't been himself in games and performing.
Yeah, Galloway is has been inconsistent, to say the least. And he's a guy that you're counting on to be one of your leaders, one of your veterans that pulls you through when things get rough. And again, it's hard to be a leader when you're making a lot of mistakes yourself. And yeah, he's got to find where he is. There's a lot of soul searching that has to come over the next week or so as the Hoosiers now move back out of Big Ten play and take on some of the lower level schools. But it's going to be a long Big Ten season if they keep this up.
I agree. I think the last thing is just I feel like Gabe Cupps also, he's been a big loss this season so far.
Well, Cupps wasn't expected to provide big minutes, but certainly you would like to see what he was able to develop with, and obviously him being outed definitely with a surgery for a lower extremity, as they say. He's not going to be around for a while, so I wouldn't look for Cupps to be able to provide much this season. It's just kind of the disappointment that a lot of the other guys seem to be just not clicking in terms of being a team. It's more individual play than anything else.
No, I agree. This game definitely might make me transfer.
All right, well, we appreciate the call. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
812-393-2600 is the number. Again, Indiana, only 9 turnovers on the night, and that's a positive. They had that. They forced, I don't even want to say forced, some of them were forced, but 14 turnovers for Nebraska, and the Hoosiers were not able to really turn that into anything. You know, you talk about points in the fast break, they got 12 on the day. Points off of turnovers, they got 14 points off of turnovers. Nebraska got 14 points off of turnovers on 9 Indiana turnovers. And you look at the bench, you had Luke Goody, 9 points on 3 of 10 shooting. You had, he added 4 rebounds. He got called for 3 fouls. He had a block and a steal. He was minus 18. Kanan Carlisle, 2 points on 1 of 7 shooting. He missed all 5 of his attempts from 3-point range. Added a rebound, an assist, but he also had a turnover and a steal. Played just 13 minutes. Didn't really make an impact when he was there. I don't know how you play 13 minutes and get up 7 shots, especially when you're not exactly microwaving the thing off. Bryson Tucker, 25 minutes. He scores 5 points on 1 of 9 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3-point range. He adds 5 rebounds. Anthony Leal played 10 minutes, didn't take a shot, didn't really make an impact either. So what you have is you run through this. Renew didn't make a huge impact or what you need him to do to win ball games. Mbako made 0 impact on this game. Leal, 10 minutes, didn't make an impact. Kanan Carlisle plays 13 minutes, didn't make an impact. Bryson Tucker had a couple of flashes. Luke Goody knocked down a couple of shots. But there's just too many no-shows in this one. And when you're playing on the road in the Big Ten, you got to bring it. And the way this team ended is a huge concern for me going forward. 17-1 run to close out the game for Nebraska. They scored the last 7 points of the game. I thought, again, Nebraska did a great job of spreading out Indiana's defense, driving and kicking, did a fantastic job with that. I am dying to hear what Mike Woodson says about the 35 three-pointers. I know that he has heard the criticism that his team doesn't take enough three-pointers, that he needs to play a more modern style. And if you look at the way the two teams played, Nebraska played more like Indiana has played so far this year, with only 14 threes, got to the free throw line, shot a good, decent percentage. That's what Indiana mostly has done. Meanwhile, Indiana jerked up a ton of threes, and there has to be a happy medium there. Both teams made 8 3-pointers. But Indiana needed 35 shots to do it. Nebraska needed 14. They just had better looks and better shooters. And it's a little baffling why suddenly that's what you want to do, to where 35 of your 65 shots come from beyond the arc. That's more than half. Again, not a math major, but here we are. Nebraska also made 7 more field goals on the day, despite shooting 16 fewer shots. Indiana, 1 of 18 to close out the game. Missed its last 12 shots. Just ugly basketball, especially down the stretch. 812-393-2600 is the number. Love to hear from you. Lines are open. I want to hear what you have to say about this game. I mentioned during the game about Nebraska's Andrew Morgan. He's going to be just unstoppable as a 40-year-old YMCA player because he already has the full complement of old man moves. And I love that kind of thing. One of our Twitter followers said we could use a meathead with those kind of skills, Ken. I will say this much. When you looked at the difference between Nebraska's post players, Ballo's bigger. But the post moves, the post activity, when the ball did go into the post, I think was far superior with Nebraska because they had Indiana scrambling in the paint in a way that the Hoosiers weren't able to do. Renew has the great shot over his left shoulder. He's really, really effective like that. Ballo's obviously big. He really benefits when Indiana's able to crash, run some pick and roll. Indiana's able to drive to the lane and dish it so that he could throw down a dunk, anything like that. But in terms of feeding the post and watching somebody operate, it's just not something that Indiana does very well. And they got schooled by Nebraska in this one. 812-393-2600 is the number on a Friday night. Friday night that's going to free up the weekend for a lot of people as they start to turn their heads toward Indiana football taking on Notre Dame next week. And I'm happy to talk about some IU football too, if you'd like, including Kurt Cignetti being named National Coach of the Year. Well-deserved with that. But we'll spend a little bit more time with IU basketball before we maybe chat that up. Again, I mentioned earlier, Louisville, 20-point lead win, 16-point win for Gonzaga, but that margin of defeat stretched out as well. Lose by 17 points in this one. So in 3 games that Indiana has lost to this point this season, Indiana's been outscored by 28 points, by 16 points, and by 17 points. And some of these other games have been a little bit more competitive than what you may have been looking for. Now, you do have now 8 days between this game and the Chattanooga game on December 21st, and you have another 8 days before the Winthrop game, December 29th, to close out 2024. This will give Indiana plenty of time to kind of gather itself. You figure they have 1 game in the next 16 days, and it's against Chattanooga. You have finals week coming up on campus. You got the Christmas break. They have 2 games before January 2nd. So a lot of time for them to work on a lot of the issues that have come up to this point. The problem in my eyes is that these problems I don't think are going to be fixed in season. I don't like the chemistry of this team. I don't like the way the guys are playing together, mostly because they don't tend to play together. They tend to play like it's 5 fingers instead of a fist. And there isn't a star on this team. There isn't an undisputed leader on the court. And that's hard to do when you keep bringing in as many guys as the Hoosiers have. And so when you're on the road and you need to be as together as possible, guys could start to, they haven't had time to build up trust in their teammates either. since so many of them were brought in when they were. And that lack of trust shows up big time, especially on the road and especially when things start to go sideways. You have players start to decide they're going to do it themselves. They don't always do their own job. They worry about what other people are doing, and it leads to easy baskets. It leads to easy mistakes, because if one guy is trying to do somebody else's job because he doesn't trust him to do the job, then the whole thing starts to break down. And that's where we're at right now is Indiana. Late in this game, the Hoosiers were not trusting one another to get the job done, and that just allowed Nebraska to build a lead and build it. Hoosiers didn't score over the final 3 minutes and 8 seconds of the game. They just pulled away. Nebraska was just had far more energy going through this thing, and so it is a struggle for me at this point to see Indiana suddenly bouncing back and putting together a solid January, because we have seen such inconsistency and such trouble against peer-level opponents. And being able to build camaraderie, Indiana's in a dangerous place right now. I'll tell you that. They're in a real dangerous place, because you are going to have guys start to think, well, you know what? I have to do it myself because I can't trust you to do your job. So somebody presses, and that's when mistakes are made. And that is certainly a challenge the Hoosiers are going to face. Hope to have some audio from Mike Woodson in his post-game press conference coming up sometime real soon. I know we got people out there. The concern is, as these losses build up, as you run into this situation, the building of the losses makes people get more and more upset with the direction of the program, and rightfully so. People want Mike Woodson fired, or say they're not going to pay attention until Mike Woodson is gone. And that is a concern, because apathy is the worst possible thing for a program. So I appreciate that people are still upset by this. As the season goes on, if Indiana doesn't start cleaning up some of this stuff, especially away from Assembly Hall, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I want to hear your thoughts on apathy when it comes to this program and how you feel about the direction of the program. Tell us in our chat or call 812-393-2600. Look, on nights like this, I'm a therapist. I want to hear it. I want to hear your thoughts on the Hoosiers and where they go from here, because look, this is tough. It's tough to say the least. And that is, you just question where you go from here, because it is, I mean, goodness, it just, what an ugly game. What an ugly game that was. Bison says on the chat, football school. And look, right now, again, I've said this before, that what Curt Cignetti did over at Memorial Stadium this year certainly has people, gives them something to pay attention to. And so at least it's splitting some of the attention that could be going toward the Hoosiers right now on the hardwood. But also people are going to say, hey, look, this guy just got here and look what he did. Why is it taking Mike Woodson so long and so many players and so much resources to not be able to start winning some of these games? And it's a fair question. It's an absolute fair question, because the Hoosiers simply are not coming close to getting the job done on the hardwood. And again, you got 2 games in 16 days, or 2 games before January 2nd. It's a lot of time to work on yourself. And there has to be a lot of soul searching in this one. I'm trying to really kind of think about some positives for the Hoosiers, and they're tough to come by. They're tough to come by. Early in the game, I thought Indiana showed nice balance offensively, but again, they don't have a star. They showed good hustle early in the second half, coming out of the locker room, just a little bit quicker to balls, was doing a better job of getting to loose balls than Nebraska was. But that energy didn't stay. The Hoosiers were inconsistent as time went on. And it is, it's, I watched what you did. And it wasn't good. It's a huge concern. Bison on the chat also says, we knew Woodson was a below average coach. Look, Mike Woodson was not wildly successful at the NBA level. If Mike Woodson didn't go to Indiana, he would not be the head coach at Indiana. He wasn't on anybody's short list for the job. Now, that said, he has done a decent job of turning out some NBA talent, but his job is to win college basketball games. And I just think it's really interesting. It's that 35 number when it comes to the three-pointers in this one. I want to know, was that a matter of him trying to say, see, this is what happens when we try to shoot a bunch of threes? I don't know what that is. Hopefully we'll get some audio from a press conference so that we could all hear that. But it's just, when you're playing on the road, when you are in a hostile environment, you need to come together as a team. And as that second half went on, I just feel like Indiana pulled apart instead. It pulled apart. And that is something that is dangerous. You know, somebody on the Peegs message board is saying his prediction for the post-game comments were at least one reference to getting over the hump. We missed open threes. Cup's injury, Rice not at full strength. All of that's possible because that's all stuff that Mike Woodson has talked about plenty in the past. And it's interesting that it's not ever about the style of basketball they play. It is just a matter of him saying that somebody plays a bunch of minutes because he wants him to play. And Carlisle, and I know this was a couple games ago, but Carlisle and who else was out? Carlisle and Cups, I think, were out, so Anthony Leal got time. Well, Carlisle's back. He seems to be on some kind of minute limit right now. But when you have your McDonald's All-American freshman in Bryson Tucker come off the bench, that's fine. Kanan Carlisle is a guy that was in the starting lineup. He's coming off the bench now. They combined to go 2 of 16, including 1 of 10 from three-point range in a combined 38 minutes. Tucker played 25. Was not effective. The most impressive thing, if he'd have thrown down that dunk that he missed, it would have been one hell of a dunk, but it isn't, that isn't where we're at. He didn't do it. He missed it. It was a good effort, but he missed it. That's not, when the highlight of your game is a missed dunk, that's a concern. Kanan Carlisle, as he's battling back from the injury that caused him to miss a couple of games, his defensive energy isn't at the same place that it was prior to the injury. Maybe that'll come over the next couple of weeks as he gets a little bit of a chance to rest. But for a team like Indiana and how they've been playing, I don't know that getting a rest is the best thing for this team. It could help because you get plenty of practice time. That's helpful. And you don't have the pressure of getting ready for games, and you don't have to worry about that portion of it. By that same token, this team maybe needs to play some games just to try to figure things out, because what's working right now is not it's not going well. 812-393-2600 is your number. I would like to, as we wait, hopefully we'll get some phone calls to talk about your thoughts on the basketball season. But I also want to talk about Curt Cignetti being tabbed Home Depot National Coach of the Year, obviously already Big Ten Coach of the Year. Indiana has something to really hang its hat on with Curt Cignetti and the job that he did this year, richly deserving of the awards that he is getting. And I cannot wait for this game against Notre Dame next Friday night. We'll be on the air after that game for sure on the Peegs Postgame Live to talk about whatever happens at Notre Dame Stadium. But I'm telling you right now, folks, Indiana's going to have every opportunity to win that ball game. Every opportunity. Because Indiana, having the chance to prepare for Notre Dame, having that experience of playing a top opponent at Ohio State, and just being able to pull together the way that they have. Notre Dame has more talent on paper, but so did Michigan, and Indiana beat them. Going on the road, playing at Notre Dame, it's going to be a tough environment, to say the least. But that is a Notre Dame team that I am not in any way, shape, or form sold on, which means Indiana's going to have every opportunity to win. I'm not making any guarantees or anything, but this is a team that will have every opportunity. If they avoid the mistakes that they made against Ohio State, they played them pretty straight up, Ohio State, when you look at the numbers. The two special teams miscues were a real problem, and obviously you had the garbage time touchdown. Now, you can't take those off the scoreboard. It is what it is. It changed the game. But Indiana was more than holding its own with Ohio State in that first half until that punt really derailed the Hoosiers. So what lessons do you learn off of a loss? Well, Indiana bounced back and beat the ever-loving hell out of Purdue the next week, and now gets to go to Notre Dame. This also is a Hoosier team that had a chance to unveil its 2025 schedule as well. Not times, but dates. Anyway, 3 non-conference games against Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. So that's 3 wins right there. Then you're talking about Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue. So let's look at that. Which of those games are a challenge? Illinois? I like Illinois. Indiana's better than Illinois, and will be and should have every opportunity to win that game next year. The Iowa game at Iowa and at Oregon are going to be both very, very tough games. But then Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, all of those are going to be winnable games. Penn State at Penn State, that'll be a tough one, but interesting. Wisconsin here, I like Indiana's chances there. I like them against Purdue. So, folks, my point is this may not be a one-year blip or an anomaly. I like where this Hoosier team is going. They obviously still have another game this year, hopefully a couple more games this year. And we'll be on the air after the IU Notre Dame game next week. But this is a football program that certainly has a lot to look forward to. My question is, what do we have to look forward to with this Indiana basketball team? I'm really concerned about it. I really, really am. Because of the fact that anytime they're away from Assembly Hall, they're getting whipped. Even the win over Minnesota's not very good. And so you won. That's great. You can only play the teams that are in front of you. But there's a lot wrong with this Hoosier team. Starting to also think that we may not have audio from Mike Woodson available for us to work with. Guy on Twitter, he says probably needs somebody who can hit an open shot. I'll just leave it there. Now, his name is Boiler True, so I don't know, where his. I know exactly where his intentions lie on that one, but it's tough to argue with him. tough to argue with. And when you have a team that goes 8 of 35 from 3, Galloway hits 3, goes 3 of 9. Luke Goody, 3 of 10. Both of those guys have played a lot of college basketball. It's the Mbako no-show that is a real concern of mine. Played 1 minute in the first half, 12 in the second half. You got to be the dude, man. You have to be if you're Mackenzie Mbako. With where you want to go in the future, no showing at Nebraska does not exactly bode well for you being able to get where you need to go on this thing. I also, again, Miles Rice has been great, but it was great in this one, but hasn't been great in other ones. And it's just really not good. So I just don't know. Just checking to see about any kind of presser. And I just am not seeing anything about him showing up to one. Not saying that he hasn't shown up. I'm saying that it isn't there yet. That's what I'm saying. And so, we will see exactly what, if anything, is said. Might not be able to do anything with it this time around. But Indiana loses for the 4th straight time to Nebraska, all of them by at least 15 points on the season in this this losing streak to Nebraska. Indiana basketball has lost to Nebraska 4 straight times, all of them by at least 15 points. I really don't know what to say. I really don't. Because it was just a straight, dead no-show. Now, Michael Niziolek from the Herald Times, he says he says this on Twitter, one other notable stat from tonight, that this was the first time Nebraska shot better than 60% in a game since a win against Boston College back in 2022, and the first time they did it against a conference opponent since a win over Northwestern, February 3rd, 2015. In other words, just a historically bad outing defensively by the Hoosiers allows Nebraska to do something they haven't done in 7 years. I was concerned about this team's defense at halftime. It was great Indiana was able to stick with them and scored 41 points in the first half. Well, Nebraska scored 44, but that's too many. This isn't an NBA game. This is, you're playing the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and you're Indiana that has some real talent on that ball club. So you have to turn up the defense. And instead, they give up 41 in the second half while only scoring 27 themselves, fall 85-68. Last call for phone calls. It's Friday night. Snacks on the chat says, wow, 4 straight by 15 or more. You got to be kidding me. I wish I was, but I am not. And, it's a head scratcher. It was unimaginable once upon a time. And now it's just a routine thing. And given the amount of resources that are given to this program, the amount of talent on the roster, the fact that people were, Mike Woodson was so high in bringing in new talent, the talent's just not meshing. It's just not meshing. Bryce Williams scores 30 points. Nebraska led for the final 23 minutes and 10 seconds of play. And this is a Nebraska team that lost its first Big Ten game. And, the Hoosiers, they beat Minnesota, but Minnesota's not very good. So it wasn't something to really hang their hat on. But look, this is a Nebraska team that has not been anything special to this point in the year. You know, they're 7-2 right now. They lost to St. Mary's earlier this year. They lost to Michigan State. And they lost to Michigan State, by the way, by 27 points. And they come home and they beat Indiana by 17. It's a struggle. It's a struggle, and we have to watch it. Now, again, 16 days, 2 games. You have Chattanooga and Winthrop. Maybe the light will come on. Maybe it won't. We will see. But for the time being, you know, the frustrations of all Indiana fans are absolutely justified, because that was just a dead no-show, plain and simple, by the Hoosiers, and huge source of frustration for everybody. Well, I appreciate everybody who tuned in, and for a couple of callers as well. I understand it's a Friday night. It's approaching 11 p.m. Eastern. People are it's tough to talk Indiana basketball when you're looking at this. And that's, Trevor Andershock on Peegs.com, our friend, he talks about on an article that he put up, just an instant analysis about this game, that Indiana's offense looked great for long stretches, but the defense never stepped up. And that's absolutely the case. Indiana's offense was clicking for a little while. In the first half alone, Indiana looked solid in the first half, especially early on. Kind of tapered off back end of the first half. But, they made 5 of their first 8 3-point attempts and then missed their next 7 to close out the half. But Indiana was matching punches with Nebraska. And instead of growing stronger off of that, they just fell apart down the stretch and just weirdly didn't have the horses, despite the fact they were more talented than the Cornhuskers. But again, Indiana, 85-68 losers at Nebraska. Their 4th straight loss to Nebraska, all of them by more than 15 points, or 15 points or more. Their next game, next Saturday, not tomorrow, but next Saturday in Bloomington, they take on Chattanooga at noon. Tip off at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Games on the Big Ten Network after that game's over. We'll be on the air as well to hear your thoughts on how the Hoosiers fare against Chattanooga. But Big Ten season does not look encouraging right now. After a loss like this, a lot of frustration. Sorry that I wasn't able to bring you anything from Mike Woodson at this point, because I'm dying to hear from him. Check with Peegs.com over the next day or so. See what if anything he's going to have said, because we need answers. We just flat out need answers from him. Hey, you know what? There's one thing. Let me check. I don't know if this will be in there already, but let me take a shot at this. This has to do with sometimes IU also sends out some comments along the way. Let me see what, if anything, we have here. We do have it. There we go. All right, so I'll let this queue up here. I'm thrilled that I was about to wrap this up, but I'm thrilled that we do get to hear from Mike Woodson let's see, where are we going to go with this? Give me a second as I figure out where this file is going to go. This looks like it was a Zoom call that Indiana had. Computer's running a little bit slow, but we will download that, and I'll be able to bring that up, and we'll be able to hear what it is that Mike Woodson had to say. during his post-game press conference. So, without further ado, hopefully this will come through. And here's Mike Woodson. During his post-game press conference, he has Miles Rice along with him. Hasn't quite loaded up yet. Ain't technology wonderful?
You guys came into this game averaging 17 three-point attempts a game. Tonight you took 35. Was that the intent to try to get more looks from the outside, or just did it kind of just play out that way?
I thought it played out that way. We had good looks, just didn't make them. You could take 30, 40, 50 threes. You got to step up and make them when you take them.
We'll go Alex and Mike.
Yeah, Mike, curious on the obviously defense, not happy with giving up 85 points. Maybe what was not happening there defensively late that they needed to when they kind of went on that run to close the game?
Well, it didn't just start late. I thought the beginning of the game we gave up, I think the score was 17 to 7 or 10 within 3-4 minutes on the clock. So we had no defensive presence to start the game. And that's something that we got to keep working and get it fixed, because especially on the road, it's tough winning on the road in the Big Ten, and you got to establish yourself from a defensive standpoint. We had, we were at 5-point game, I think, with 5-6 minutes on the clock, but we just couldn't make shots. We had good looks. I look at our bench. I think what were we off the bench? 5, 6 for 26. That's tough. Coming off the bench, we were 5 for 26 and shooting the basketball. So our bench has been pretty good for us this year. So we just got to continue to push them, because we're going to need them as we continue this journey.
Mike and then Zach.
Yeah, Coach. Bryce Williams went for 30 in the game. What made him such a tough cover for you guys?
Getting downhill, getting to the free throw line. And he made a couple of tough shots. You kind of live with some of them, but once he got going, it was tough to shut him down. A lot of it was in isolation off the bounce, and that's something that we got to get better in that area too, and defending off the dribble.
Zach and then Daniel.
I guess for either Mike, either you or Miles, just what in particular did you feel like Nebraska was doing defensively that wasn't letting your guards get downhill consistently? I know Miles did a little bit more there in the second half, but in terms of kind of getting maybe that high ball screen game going consistently the way you guys wanted to.
I thought our pick and roll was pretty good. When you get open looks like we got from the 3-point line, that's what causes friction when you run pick and roll basketballs. They run out of bodies in terms of rotating, and I thought we had great looks. Goody had a lot of excellent looks. We had good looks tonight. We just didn't make them.
Daniel, then Zach.
Yeah, Miles, I want to say you guys were held to like 1 point the last 6.5 or so. What kind of changed for you all?
We kind of took a couple shots that probably was out of rhythm, and we didn't defend how we should have down the stretch. And that's a recipe for disaster when you put both those together. So we just got to be better going down the stretch, and continue playing as a team and just be better.
Zach and then Seth.
Coach, in your eyes tonight, was giving up 85 points, was that more of a result of your poor defense as a team, or was it more just Nebraska making tough shots?
They made shots, but, we got to be better defensively. I'm on these guys constantly. We work on defense, and, I know defense wins, especially when you're not making shots. At least keeps you in the ball game, and tonight they had it both ways. They made shots, and we weren't very good defensively.
Seth.
Mike, to have McKenzie pick up 2 fouls in the first minute of the game, just how big of an impact did that have on you all and your game plan?
Oh, it's huge. He's a big part of what we do. And, I mean, the game wasn't out of hand, so it wasn't like we had to just throw him right back in to possibly pick up three. You go in at halftime down three, so you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Uh, Again, it's a tie ball game, I think, with 5-6 on the clock, and then we just let it get away, and that's just something that we gotta work on, because I think if we keep putting ourselves in that position, we'll have an opportunity to break through and win.
Last question, Alex.
Going back to the 3-point attempts for either of you guys, was that more a function of what Nebraska was doing defensively against you guys, or were you pretty happy with the looks you were getting?
I was very proud of the looks we got. I mean, they definitely took the inside play away. They doubled. So, you can't just fight through double teams. You have to sacrifice the ball. I thought we did a pretty good job in that regard. And, we just missed some shots. I mean, if you make those shots, then, it's probably a different ball game. You can't go 8 for 35 and not and have the looks that we had tonight. We had some good looks.
All right, one more time, Brew.
Miles, you were really aggressive trying to attack the basket tonight yourself. 13 shots, led the team with attempts. Did you have a lot of good looks yourself, or did that just kind of come naturally as well?
A little bit of both. I mean, I just saw when we was in transition, they were running with their backs turned, a chance for us to get easy shots, easy looks on the rim. And if I would have missed, my teammates are coming in for the rebound, and vice versa if that's for anybody else. So I just thought the flow of the game was right there for me to, attack downhill and kind of, take advantage of the opportunities that they presented us. And, it kind of led to us coming back a little bit. But like I said, we got to be better down the stretch and continue to be better there.
All right, thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.
So that was head coach Mike Woodson during his post-game press conference, along with Miles Rice, guard Miles Rice, who scored 20 points. And my takeaway on that, my instant reaction on that is Mike Woodson said that he was fine with them taking 35 threes. They just have to make the threes, that is important. So, we just need to make threes. You haven't to this point said that they took threes because Nebraska had taken away the inside. They were doubling. How do you counter that? You have to counter that. That's your job. Especially when you have two bigs that you like to run out there all the time. They can't double both of them. So you adjust. And it's one thing if you're making your threes. If you're not making your threes, you got to also adjust that as well. Run some sets, get some more pick and roll, run, give yourselves opportunities. You can't just keep hucking threes, especially when you're not making them. And he says, defensively, we got to get better defensively. Yeah, we all watched it and know. So to me, it is that was not exactly something that was an encouraging press conference. But what are you going to say? I mean, your team just got beat by 17 on the road, and you have a lot of work to do. So what are you going to do? Indiana moves to 1-1 on the Big Ten season. Again, now it doesn't play until next Saturday when they take on Chattanooga. And walked off the court 85-68 losers today. And a lot of work still left to be done. Obviously, got to get better defensively. Got to figure out a way to counter when Nebraska packs the lane or an opponent packs the lane and forces you to shoot threes. Because guess what, kids? That's exactly what every team is going to do against Indiana is say, you want to beat us? Beat us from the perimeter. Let's see if you can do it. Long way to go. A lot of basketball left to be played. A lot of improvement still to come. Well, that's all the time we have on the Peegs Post-Game Live. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to remind you to visit Peegs.com for the very best in IU football and basketball coverage you're going to find anywhere. Nobody covers Hoosier recruiting better than Jeff Rabjohns, Matt Weaver, Trevor Andershock, and Jared Kelly. So come be a part of a thriving and exciting community at Peegs.com. Folks, you are not going to be disappointed. Folks, we're out of time, but for now, and for Jeff, Matt, Trevor, and Jared, I'm Ken Bykoff saying thanks for listening, everybody.